Hmm. Mhm.
Online.
Orange? Yeah.
Yeah, and say a word. You saving your words up for the meeting?
Oh, you call him?
Charlene's been saying she was gonna rat me out.
And he,
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
failed to come in when I said, tell her what you said. He said nothing.
He's smarter than you think.
I know. That's why he's an attorney.
Oh, I'm down the wrong way. That's what I get for laughing.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order, Lancaster County Council here on December 11th, 2023. This will be our only meeting in December as we all get ready for the holiday season. With that, I'd like to welcome everyone here today and a special welcome to Miss Veronica Thompson. We can't talk her into to staying. She will be retiring, and it's been an honor to sit up here and to. I've been here 10 years, and finance or financial issues have never been a concern of mine, and that's a testament to what you have done. And with that, would everybody please stand up and give her a big round of applause? And if anyone else would like to say something up here, for
I certainly will. It has really been a pleasure, Veronica. I think the first time we met across the street at the old county building when I was on the school board. And you impressed me then, and you continue to impress me with knowing how to count, you know. As Steve said, we never worried, never had to worry, because we knew we had the best. And we are certainly going to miss you. Okay.
Veronica, I would like to say I've enjoyed, the years here with you. You've done an excellent job and award-winning every year, and it's just, we're going to really miss you.
I'd like to just echo that, Veronica. You've done an excellent job, and we're going to really know how much we miss you when you're gone. That's going to be the real time we'll miss you. So, but we do wish you the best, a lot of happiness in whatever endeavors you undertake.
I'd just like to say, won't you reconsider?
I think Veronica's theme song is going to be "You're Gonna Miss Me When I'm Gone." Cups by Anna Kendrick.
all right, with that, would y'all please rise and join Councilmember Charlene McGriff as she leads us in our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Lord, as we move into this meeting tonight, please provide us with the knowledge, the wisdom to make Lancaster better and to do the right thing for our citizens. As we move into this holiday season, please provide our citizens and my fellow council members with a safe and a happy holiday. Amen.
Mr. Carnes has joined us. He is supposed to be here, and we will be, our votes will be by roll call tonight. So do I have a motion for the approval of our agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. McGriff and a second from Mr. Graham. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approved.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
All right, we have unanimous approval of our agenda this evening. Let's move on down to citizens' comments. Please bear in mind, this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. I ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak in the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. We have Mr. Steve Willis.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, pleasure to be here this evening. Steve Willis, 517 Rock Springs Road, Lancaster, South Carolina. Veronica Thompson has faithfully served Lancaster County for many years. Judging on her young age and youthful appearance, I can only conclude that Chap violated the child labor laws when he hired her. I wish I could take credit for hiring such an outstanding employee, but I can't do so. During her time with the Lancaster County, the Finance Department has made great strides under Veronica's leadership. Lancaster County has more than 20 years of the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting and over 10 years Distinguished Budget Presentation Award. Those are the two highest awards by the Government Finance Officers Association and assures the public and council the highest financial standards being maintained. Some other highlights include overseeing numerous bond projects, drafted for the county attorney the county ordinance sections regarding financial regulation standards we must meet. Through careful budget management, oversaw the steady increase in county fund balance. Prior to my time with Lancaster County, I can recall county council having to issue tax anticipation notes to get through the fiscal year, but it's been many, many years since that was necessary. An additional benefit to setting and following strong fiscal policies and building the fund balance has been a steady increase in the rating agency opinions of Lancaster County. Our high ratings save the taxpayer significant sums when it's necessary to issue bonds for projects. I saw on the news just the other day that Lancaster County, under Veronica's leadership, now has a higher bond rating than a world superpower, China. Finally, Veronica built a great team during her time as finance director, but it didn't stop there. When asked, she stepped up to become Director of Financial Services / Chief Financial Officer and brought that same spirit of teamwork to several other county departments. I could go on with her many accolades, but you'd fuss at me for running over my time limit. The main thing I want to thank Veronica for is her friendship and guidance to me as county administrator. I know the late Chap Hurst and Dennis Marstall would echo that sentiment. Veronica was always willing to help, but also never afraid to say no if a proposal was not in the best financial interest of Lancaster County and the taxpayers. The thing I valued most of all was keeping Lancaster County and our council and our employees out of the news. Currently in South Carolina, we have one former county administrator being investigated by the state grand jury for financial misdeeds, and another county facing a state investigation for several years of misspending restricted funds such as their capital project sales tax and restricted fire fees. That was never a concern with Veronica watching over the money. We don't have a Chancellor of the Exchequer here in the United States like they do in England, but Veronica is certainly worthy of the title, the Right Honorable Minister of the Crown, if we had such. Her service to Lancaster County has been exemplary in every way. And with all due respect to Ben and Clay and Jerry and all the rest, it's been the best finance director Lancaster County has ever had. I'm sad to see her retire as a friend, but really sad to see this as a lifelong taxpayer. I owe Veronica so very much for her friendship and guidance over my 15 years as administrator, and I'll simply close with thank you so very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Willis, for those kind words. Let's move on down to item 6, our special presentations. We have one here. We have an update on the Carolina Hill Splitter Ordinance and Procedures that's presented by Ms. Allison Harden, our Development Services Director. Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I wanted to give you an overview of where we are to date on the Carolina Hill Splitter situation in Lancaster County. And in order to make sure everybody's on the same page, I got just a little bit of overview in the first few slides. Carolina Hill Splitter is a mollusk that was rediscovered in North and South Carolina in 1987. In 1993, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service listed it as endangered, and in 2005, a habitat was found in 6 Mile Creek. The Carolina Hill Splitter is native to North and South Carolina in these areas. And so in 2006 and 2007, as Mr. Willis, I'm sure, can remember, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife intervened on behalf of the Hill Splitter, and the community came together and worked on with Fish and Wildlife to establish development restrictions based on their proposed ordinance. The original proposal did not pass, and so staff and Mr. Willis and the elected and appointed officials all went back to the drawing board and came up with a proposed mitigation bank. And I want to also thank Mr. Willis while he's here for his good record keeping, because I'm going on some of his notes from the history. In January, Council passed a resolution to apply the UDO for a UDO text amendment showing an intent to create an overlay zone to cover the 6 Mile Creek habitat. This resolution created a commission that would report back to council. In April, council approved their first ordinance for the Carolina Heel Splitter Overlay District. And then several months later, they adopted some changes based on the input of that commission. In 2009, the Carolina Heel Splitter Conservation Bank was formed. For those that are not aware of what a conservation bank is, it is something whereby you have a sensitive area that needs protection, and you still need to have development in the area, so you are allowed to proceed with some type of development based on alleviating the stressor to that area in some way, shape, or form. Most of the time, conservation banks are held within the area where the stress is handled. Sometimes they're handled off-site. The most popular one that you may know of, and that I know of in state, is the South Carolina DOT Wetlands Bank. If you have a DOT project that's going through a wetland environment, and instead of rebuilding the wetlands in that area where the road is, they can buy credits into an undisturbed wetland area and preserve that. Similar here, where there was an easement created on property to conserve the habitat for the heel splitter, and there were some regulations put in place whereby development would pay for that. After that bank was installed in 2009, the county used Environmental Banking Exchange as mitigation bankers, and 388 credits were installed. In the first 4 years, about 57 were sold per year at 29 total. In 2014, Environmental Banking Exchange was taken over by RES, and process continued on. RES is Resource Environmental Solutions. They're the people that hold the credits and hold the bank for that. In the next 2 years, the uptick of credits was higher than what had been in the last 4 years. So based on that estimate, U.S. Fish and Wildlife at the end of 2017 had the end of phase 1 of the project. They picked up on phase 2 and released 573 additional credits with an estimation of absorption in 2025 for that. Considering that the area where, can you get back on the thing? Thank you. Considering that the area where the heel splitter is covered is in the high growth area around Indian Land, it's nobody's surprise that we went out of credits higher or sooner than we would have before. We found out through a developer telling us that the heel splitter credits were either almost sold out or completely sold out. So we advanced information and communication with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and unfortunately their main staff person, their only staff person for Carolina heel splitter, was pregnant and went out on maternity leave till October. Created a little bit of a delay, but we were able to talk to other staff members as well during the time frame. We also contacted the RES Bank to find out what our alternatives were. We found out the Fish and Wildlife did have an idea on a phase 3 of the project, but they were 2 years out from creating that and creating those credits for the bank. And the RES folks said that we could create our own program, but it was a little complex. So we went back to, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this is that the overlay district was created to help protect the natural habitat of the Carolina heel splitter and therefore maintain the existing populations located in Lancaster County. In order to determine if we're working on that, we go back to the 5-year reports that Fish and Wildlife puts out for all endangered species. The one for the Carolina heel splitter reported in 2012 that there was not quite enough information, but there were scattered populations available, and the 5-year review in 2019 indicated that there had been repopulation observed, but that the 6 Mile Creek habitat was still in degradation. One thing I want to point out is that between 2012 and 2019, we instituted we had to institute MS4 regulations in the Indian Land area based on the population and the impact to non-point source pollution. So in between that time, we started putting in regulations that were specifically geared toward cleaning up the waters in those areas. That has been helpful as well. So staff is working on some options to date for this. The most harsh thing, I think, financially we could do would be a really lovely thing to do, but it's very expensive, which is to clean up the entire watershed. Take the watershed down to a natural state, put in barriers and riparian buffers and the like, but it's an extremely expensive project and involves quite a number of property owners. and we still don't really have a good handle on how much it would actually cost at the end of the day. We could create our own fee and lieu program, or we could continue with the banking. Continuing with the banking, the challenge with that is that the banking of the Carolina Heel Splitter credits was based on the current development speed and also the number of credits that were available. We have no idea how many credits will be available by Project 3. So staff is leaning toward and working on some proposals for you to create our own fee and lieu program whereby the U.S. Fish and Wildlife still gets financing for its heel splitter nurseries, which is part of, this is where the product money goes to for Fish and Wildlife, but also some money goes into our coffers in order for us to do additional projects in the 6 Mile Creek watershed in order to make that habitat even more stable for the heel splitters and hopefully pull them off the endangered list. And I'm open for questions.
First question, since I guess all the credits are gone, is the county still required to have some kind of program?
It is still in our code. It's in our UDO, and it is an agreement that we have through Fish and Wildlife. It is a voluntary agreement, and we are working on ways to achieve that end in some other way.
Does Fish and Wildlife still require it, or do we know?
Fish and Wildlife still requires us to be part of that at this point in time. The alternatives, when we were investigating what an alternative was to not buying credits, the director of the program said that projects will need to will have guidance given for via technical assistance with Fish and Wildlife Agency in order to avoid any potential impacts to the species. In order to do so, developers would submit a project description, maps, and design plans, as well as protected species survey reports to the office and their regulatory address, and the project would be assigned and responded to from there. So it would be a developer and a Fish and Wildlife representative that would negotiate back and forth on that. The heel splitter credit is a much easier process, obviously, and it still meets the goal of protecting and or growing the population of the heel splitter. It also takes a lot less time.
Questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hart.
So when do we have to do something?
No, sir, that was to give you an update because I'm hoping to get to a point in the next month where I provide you with a review of proposed changes to the UDO for this. That will need to be installed before the UDO rewrite. Is one of the few times where I will come to you and say, I really need this change so that we can help development not stumble in the Indian land area.
Well, I don't know. There's some people up there want it to stumble.
I'll leave that to you. Thanks.
All right, thank you again, Ms. Harden. Let's move on down to item number 7, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agenda items 7A, 7B, 7C, and 7D.
Second.
A motion for Mr. Mosteller, a second for Ms. McGriff. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approved.
Charlene McGriff,
Approve.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approve.
All right, we have unanimous approval of our consent agenda tonight. Let's move on down to our non-consent agenda. Item 8A, public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2023-1880 regarding amending the fiscal year 2023-24 budget related to land acquisition and sheriff's uniforms. Who we got up there? Ms. Thompson.
Mr. Chair, members of council, just want to thank you for all of your kind words. I'm humbled by those words. Many of you know that I shy away from all of the accolades, but I truly thank you for your support in me for you current council members and former council members. I appreciate it. But I just want to say that I couldn't have done what I've done over the years without qualified, good staff. So thank you. Have you read everything? Okay. I'm kind of lost right now, but.
Okay.
This is the budget amendment for the $400,000 donation for the state park of the Nesbitt property, and also the $55,000 for the new uniforms for the sheriff's department. And both, the Nesbitt property was approved by council in June, and I believe the $55,000 was discussed in one of the council committee of the whole in, I believe, October.
All right, any questions for Ms. Thompson? Hearing none, we do have a public hearing scheduled on this matter, but no one signed up for it. So we will move past our public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Louise, a second from Mr. Blackman. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, would you please, roll call, please?
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approved.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
and Brian Carnes.
Approved.
We have unanimous approval of third reading of ordinance 2023-1880. Again, thank you, Ms. Thompson. All right, let's move down to 8B. We have public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2023-1883 regarding an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Heath Springs. Who we got? Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir. Thank you. For the intergovernmental agreement, at the last meeting, we talked about adding in a review of the work for each year to keep up ahead of time to make sure we know what the impact of providing these services to Heath Springs and Kershaw would be. We also wanted, you also wanted language in there about how you can close out the terminate the agreement with 90 days. Either party could, and the terms of that. We added it into both the Heath Springs and the Kershaw amendment. I want to point out in the handouts before we sign off on them that when I updated the Heath Springs ordinance for IGA, there's one time where I didn't change it to Heath Springs and it's still Kershaw. So that typo needs to be handled in that one. So my apologies on that. So we did this in response to your comments, and if you have questions, I'm here.
Any questions?
It says staff will evaluate any changes that are warranted for Van Wyck. What does that mean?
Well, Van Wyck is on the second phase of this project. Van Wyck also has building inspections done by the county and stormwater, and we're going to put together an IGA for them after we go through this process.
All right, any more questions for Ms. Harden? We do have a public hearing scheduled for this third reading, but no one signed up for it. So we'll move past our public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So move.
Motion for Mr. Blackman, second for Ms. McGriff. Any discussion? Hearing none, I think we're ready to vote. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approved.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
We have unanimous approval, third reading of ordinance 2023-1883. Let's move down to 8C, public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2023-1884 regarding an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Kershaw.
Yes, sir.
Ms.
This
Hart.
is the same ordinance format, just a different town. We'll still be monitoring for both Heath Springs and Kershaw annually.
Any questions for Ms. Harden? Hearing none, we do have a public hearing also scheduled on third reading of ordinance 2023-1884. No one signed up for that public hearing, so I am looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. McGriff.
Second.
Second from Mr. Mosteller. Any discussion? Hearing none, would a call for the roll call, please?
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
We have unanimous approval of third reading of orders 2023-1884. Let's move down to our public hearing and third reading of ordinance 2023-1885 regarding amending Article 4 of Chapter 25 of the County Code ordinance title, an ordinance to amend Article 4 of Chapter 25. Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir. There's been no significant change since the amendments we made after first reading, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions for Ms. Harden? We do have a public hearing on this ordinance too. No one signed up for it, so I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. McGriff,
Second.
second from Mr. Graham. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
All right, so we have unanimous approval of third reading of ordinance 2023-1885. Let's move to 8E. This is first reading of ordinance 2023-1865 regarding amending the Unified Development Ordinance related to Chapter 2, Section 2.4, District Standards for Medium Density Residential. Do I have a motion? Bring this matter to the floor. Hearing no motion to bring this matter to the floor, this motion is dead. Okay, so we'll move on to 8F, first reading of ordinance 2023-1870 regarding amending the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, related to Chapter 4, Section 4.441, Cluster Subdivision Overlay Standards. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion from Ms. McGriff. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I got a second from Mr. Graham. Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir. The cluster subdivision overlay standards is a overlay district option that sits on top of the medium density residential. It allows for a different configuration of properties based on a number of situations. The benefits for this is that it protects environmentally sensitive areas. The overall development footprint is reduced if you have to do less pavement and your area of development is in a smaller section. Long-term maintenance costs are reduced and property values have the potential to increase since there are individual lots that will enjoy a larger open spaces. Staff had proposed several changes as shown on the screen to this ordinance, in particular to better outline the need to preserve natural resources with the cluster overlay subdivision. It had been observed by folks both applying for permits and folks from the public that the cluster subdivision seemed to be used just as a way to get smaller lots. So we wanted to tie it to something more meaningful and make it preserve natural resources and also provide for alternatives when you have property that has extreme issues such as slope or wetlands. The detail of the proposed changes was provided to you in your packet. The minimum lot area currently without the incentive in that zone is 5,000 square feet. We proposed without incentive to go up to 7,500, which would answer some of the concerns about those that think that the lots are too small. But with the additional incentives to go back down to 5,000 if you have additional conditions put on your development voluntarily for that. We also proposed a limited amount of the development to be allowed to go to those smaller lots. In a conditional subdivision, you get a lot of space between the houses, which requires a lot more road frontage, requires a lot more private property ownership, and folks don't always get to share the natural benefits and the beauty of the properties. We added things like you could save agricultural sites. That was not one of the situations that was proved in cluster subdivision. That we asked for additional green and open space under certain conditions. The houses would have common open space usable for everyone, and woods could be preserved for habitat, stormwater absorption, or slope stabilizations, all of which are things that we need. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and after deliberation recommended approval with several amendments, which is the ordinance that came to you for this discussion. They increased the riparian buffer, which is the area around along water courses, reduced the incentive options to 5 from 8, moved 2 of them over to a requirement, and then a required additional wetland buffer. I'm available for questions if you'd like to ask.
And Ms. Harden, did I say or remind me and council from our last meeting that we said we'd be comfortable trying to include this in the UDO?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you would like for this to go forward to the UDO with your comments, I'd be happy to take that. Or if you would like this to be a standalone ordinance that you process beforehand, that is your decision.
Well, we've been talking about cluster development for at least 2 years.
It's a hot topic.
And it's a topic that apparently council has a problem getting a consensus on.
I think there's still, for me, there's still issues. No 2 lots adjacent shall, be the same width when you're allowing some lots to go down to 5,000 square feet, and you're going to have a lot 7,500 square foot next to it. That just doesn't. That doesn't work as far as depth-wise. So, personally, I think it needs some more discussion, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you for that note.
All right, any more questions?
Ms. Harden, would the Planning Commission prefer that, and staff, would they prefer that this be discussed as part of the overall UDO amendments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can I make a motion to move this until that moment?
You can. It would be to postpone pretty much indefinitely. If I recall my discussions with Director Harden, if we kill this ordinance, that would be best because it will be included in the UDO. So that would get rid of what's in front of you now.
How long is it going to be before we get the UDO?
We're working very hard every day.
That's not an answer.
No, sir, it is not.
It's not a very optimistic answer. And what do we do about developments in the meantime?
I am very optimistic that we will have it done in the late summer, early fall of next year.
I'm aware of one developer in the Panhandle that is proposing cluster development, and I am very much opposed to cluster development as it is today.
This ordinance would not remove the current provisions, it would make it harder. But if the developer comes to us before the time frame, then they would be under the current regulations.
Grandfathered in.
No, not grandfathered necessarily, depends on when they put in their application. If this ordinance were to go forward and become part of the code in 2 more meetings, if their development came in with an application after that date, they would go by the new ones. Anytime before then, grandfathered in under the current ones.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
I do think there's some significant things in this new proposed ordinance that makes cluster subdivision better. I like the option that's put in about conserving farmland. And also the increased buffers around streams and wetlands.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
You know, I agree with you. I think it needs more discussion. I wanted to get it on the table for discussion, but I think I'm going to have to agree with you tonight.
I mean, we have a motion on the floor for approval. Is there any amendments or other recommendations? If not, we'll go ahead and vote. All right, I think I'm ready. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Deny.
Billy Mosteller,
Deny.
Jose Luis,
Deny.
Steve Harper,
Deny.
Alan Blackman,
Disapprove.
Brian Carnes,
Approve.
All right, the first reading of ordinance 2023-1870 fails by a vote of 2 for and 5 opposed. So let's move on down to public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2023-1879 regarding amending the Unified Development Ordinance regarding Chapter 2, 5, and 10 to add definition and regulations for non-metallic mineral product manufacturing. The applicant is Kim Lineberger on behalf of KCH Real Estate, LLC. Ms. Harden.
Yes, sir, thank you. The ordinance before you is a request, as you said, by Ms. Lineberger, to add in non-metallic mineral product manufacturing. And I go ahead and apologize right now if I say the word mining because I slipped up twice in Planning Commission. It's non-metallic mineral product manufacturing. It is not something that is currently allowed in our, directly allowed in our UDO. When Ms. Lineberger came to staff to ask if this was something that would be allowed in the zone where her where her property is located, which is heavy industrial. We evaluated it and gave her the opinion that it would be allowed generally, but the buffers would be such that it would be very restrictive. So Ms. Lineberger is asking for a text amendment to allow this use on her property. The applicant would like to invest in a relocatable asphalt plant similar to the one pictured on the screen. In the staff report, there was also a link to a video that showed you how it worked. If you would like that information. And then Ms. Lineberger also provided handouts showing how or showing more detail about the process that was attached to your report. Such uses are not currently specified in the UDO, and asphalt plants are regulated federally under non-metallic mineral product manufacturing and recycling. The site specifics, we don't typically talk about site specifics in a text amendment because the text amendment will apply to all of the zones, but for this purpose, so that you could understand why the request was made, the area that's outlined in dark red is the property of the applicant's property. The current use is construction-based uses, including site work, asphalt, soil stabilization, and a construction school. There was an asphalt plant in operation when the property was purchased by the Lineberger family in 1982, and the asphalt plant continued in operation until 1997. Had the asphalt plant continued in operation and been gone for only 6 months, we would have been allowed to have it reissued. But it has been more than 6 months since it's been closed, so this has to go under the new UDO ordinances. The applicant has asked for non-metallic mineral product manufacturing as a new category of land use with the regulations that they proposed in place. And there is a comparison chart in your report that shows the difference between what they have requested and what is in the code. They want at least a 6-acre lot size for this use to be allowed, a minimum separation of 500 feet from residential, from business park and INS districts, 500 feet from any residential dwellings, schools, daycare centers, religious facilities, parks, historic districts, and landmarks, regardless of location. That part is a little important for Ms. Lineberger's property in particular because her property is on the line for City of Lancaster and Lancaster County jurisdiction. So that would apply to protect those properties that are not under or our county jurisdiction. The facility would be set back at least 75 feet from the property line. The screening would require an 8-foot-tall opaque buffer with specifics that would be located within the setbacks, and there would be requirement for dust protection or dust reduction measurements. An evaluation of the site using the current code with the red area hashed being the setbacks from any residential properties. You can see that with the current code, which requires a half-mile distance from residential zones, that there is no part of Ms. Lineberger's property that will be allowed to use this particular type or any type of industrial, restricted industry uses on that property. The applicant has proposed a 500-foot buffer, which is shown here on the screen in the blue outline, showing that the facility could be located on the property behind the railroad track and also somewhat on the property on the north side of the railroad track, depending upon where the applicant wants to sit it. This would be the 500 feet from any lots with the LDR, MDR, HDR, manufactured home or MH, et cetera. As you can see on the screen, there is a MH zone directly abutting Ms. Lineberger's property. There's also neighborhood business and general business to the west. For comparison, the areas in orange are where there is a request of stepping back from our current code. In the areas in green is when it goes higher than our current, or it meets our current code. The other areas in the code in the chart show that where it goes beyond ours. So, for instance, we have a internal setback currently of 300 feet. They're proposing to go to an internal setback of 75 feet. But they also are inquiring more in the buffer and the berm and more than a chain link fence, which is what we have as a requirement in the code. In other jurisdictions, Planning Commission often asks us to look at what other communities are doing for their regulations. So we looked at some of the counties. There were many counties that we looked at that did not have this use as a list in their listed use. They just had industrial uses, but the ones that did have it specified or close to having it specified are listed on the screen. There were various different separations, but as you can see, Lancaster County's got the farthest in the separation requirement between residential and the industrial uses. And the proposed is down on the bottom, shaded in gray to provide you with an access to looking at how it lines up with the rest of the counties around us. Staff concerns for this was that there was references to the NAICS, the North American Industrial Code System, which we really don't use in our code. So there was a dependent upon that. We also had concerns about the inequality in regulating non-metallic mineral product manufacturing differently than other restricted industrial uses. There wasn't much discussion on storage of raw materials and pre or post mixed materials and the impact to the neighboring properties and natural resources if it was developed without a few extra requirements. The Planning Commission recommended denial 5-1 at their November 21st meeting. There was a lot of discussion about consolidating text amendments into the work that's being done with the UDO. So what you have in front of you, the ordinance, is the ordinance that Ms. Lineberger provided with some additional steps that address the staff concerns. I brought that to Ms. Lineberger's attention, and she will be able to tell you whether she has agreed with that or not. And she's here.
All right, any questions for Ms. Hard?
When you went, can you go back to the slide before? All right, it says impact the economy if it is not.
Yes, sir.
Can you define that?
I believe Ms. Lineberger can do it better than I can.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Kim Lineberger, 2273 Tuckaway Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina. Chairman, Councilman, I'd just like to appreciate your time tonight. As far as the economy, it is a business decision for us with some material restrictions. Our revenue streams are changing, so we'd like to vertically integrate so we can maintain the jobs and grow the business. I don't want to take up any time that you don't already know, but the first thing I'd like to show you is the actual aerial photograph of the property where the plant's going to be located, and you can pass these through. So if you look at this blue circle, that's where the plant would be located, and you could see the surrounding trees. So we're pretty secluded, which is the reason we chose that. This is actually would be located on Lot 6 and 7 of the Duke Readiness Plan that Lancaster County did for us back in 2015. So it would be on the opposite side of the railroad tracks. We'd like to get across the railroad tracks so we could have a spur line too and get, so most of our materials come out of Charleston for our liquid AC. So we're working with LNC to get a spur line through there too.
It's appropriate for council to ask Ms. Lineberger questions. Any questions for Ms. Lineberger? Yeah, this, like I said, for many years, this is in my district, but this has always been a industrial area, and it actually looks a lot better than it has many years ago with I think the Don construction is on the backside, and Ms. Lineberger's, you built a new building about 5 to 6, 7 years ago. Yes. Updated her facilities, and this will not be visible from the road. I think could you discuss what kind of standards you have to adhere to with bed and air and all smell and all? Could you address that?
Everything is controlled by DHEC. So we apply for an air permit where they monitor air. Dust particles is our main concern, is what we just see. And everything is controlled. They, down to daily reports, they monitor everything. So, and then the asphalt plant itself has to be approved by SCDOT to be able to provide mix for DOT products. So it is federally controlled, everything. They check all of it.
That's a pretty central location in Lancaster County. Where are other asphalt plants located?
So right now, we are purchasing materials from York County and Chesterfield County, Kershaw County. So all of our products are purchased out of county. So that's about a $7 million revenue stream that's going to one of those 3 counties right now.
And you will also sell asphalt?
We will. We'll also sell retail sales.
Mr. Chair, you know, I think it's a good idea that can I call you Kim? That Kim is being proactive and innovating and moving her industry up. And she's been such a good partner in the area when it comes to industry. And this text amendment will also allow her to hire more, will keep the jobs, will keep revenue in our county. So I think it's a good idea.
Me too, Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak. Kim, you employ, 80 employees. Some of them make a substantial amount of money, and that is great, and anything we can do to help you move your business forward, or I'm for, because, we have to look out for our industry in Lancaster County to keep jobs for our citizens and stuff, and I think it's a very good idea.
I have a clarification question. So is this going to apply to all HI zoning districts, including some of the ones closer to Van Wyck? Okay. And then when we talk about regulations, New Indy is also highly regulated, correct? And it has a lot of the same restrictions on particulates and exposure and all that. My concern, and there's nothing personal to this, is we've had significant issues with New Indy, in particular in my district, and it's coming over from multiple districts, even though it was far away and it had all the natural buffers and all that. So I am highly concerned about this from both an environmental condition and from the health and safety of our residents. I understand how it could be productive and it could add to our economy, but seeing what happened with New Indy, I just can't move forward until I can verify and feel comfortable that we have all the protections for our residents and our constituents.
All right. Any more questions for staff from Ms. Lineberger?
Has there been any opposition, public opposition?
Typically, in a text amendment, we don't send out letters. We put a sign in the yard. However, on this particular one, because we knew that there was a potential of making a large change on this property, we did send out letters to all the adjoining property owners. We received no information from them. And I don't remember anybody speaking up at the public hearing. Do you? There was nobody that spoke up at the public hearing.
So were there notices sent out just for this property or to all properties near all H1 zonings?
To the ones adjacent to this property in particular because of the need for this one.
But the impact is going to be on all of them.
The impact
So
would be on
somebody
all
could come in and open an asphalt plant.
There was somebody tried that in Van Wyck. They weren't successful.
Now they will be.
Yeah, because it's allowed by right.
That's the challenge that we have. We have
Yes.
a balance to worry about.
That makes it. I applaud your business and your contribution to Lancaster, but I am concerned about the other HI.
I understand. All I can tell you is asphalt is the most recycled product. We actually take products that come out of the ground. I mean, 95% of our product is different types of material that are mined out of the ground. We blend those together, and for no better terms, we put glue. Asphalt cement is the glue. So asphalt is the 100% recycled.
Yeah.
Mill it back up off a road and mix it back in the mix and put it back down again.
I understand. I appreciate that, and I applaud that, actually, because I know that that's extremely helpful. I just am concerned because of all the issues that we have had with the new Indy plant.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a few comments. If anybody's familiar with the Lineberger site, now. I don't know if you were familiar with it years ago, but it is definitely improved. They've done a great job. As you can see the picture with all the trees around it and everything else, I don't see where there's a better location for something like this to happen or to occur or to be created. And I just think that with the reputation of the Lineberger entities, they will do an excellent job in mitigating any concerns about dust. And I think that's outlined maybe even in this document here. So I'm in favor of seeing Lineberger Construction Company move forward with this project.
I think at this point, we need to go ahead and have a public hearing and have a motion to bring this matter to the floor. We do have a public hearing scheduled. No one signed up, so did I have looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor?
So move.
Motion from Mr. Blackman, second from Mr. Mosteller. Any more discussion or questions for staff or Ms. Lineberger?
You go back to the slide that showed the buffers and, yeah, that one there. I'm just curious about it.
Horry County had the most extensive regulations in the grouping that we studied.
They got a minimum lot size of 2.5 acres.
Yes, they do.
6 acres is bigger.
All right. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, call for a roll call vote, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Disapprove.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
What was, I didn't catch your vote to start with.
Mine?
Yeah.
I forgot.
Approved. Okay. So I think I'm correct. The first reading of ordinance 23-1879 passes by a vote of 6 for and 1 opposed. All right, let's move on down to first reading of ordinance 2023-1887, a fee agreement amendment to Project Cobalt. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Ms. McGriff. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Graham. Mr. Falk.
Actually, tonight,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Tonight we have,
I don't think so.
tonight, Mr. Chairman and council members, we have Ms. Amy Carnes here from our Economic Development Office, representing Mr. Falk, but speaking to a local business who's been in the county for several decades, talking about an adjustment to one component of their economic development agreement. So I'll ask Ms. Carnes to give a quick highlight.
All right. Good evening, council members and others. Of course, first question, yes, I'm not Brian Falk. I'm Amy Carnes, and I'm the coordinator for Lancaster County Economic Development. We're bringing to you today the first reading of ordinance 2023-1887 for Project Cobalt. Ordinance 2023-1887 reads, an ordinance to authorize and approve the execution and delivery of the First Amendment to fee agreement by and among Lancaster County, South Carolina, Project Cobalt and Project Cobalt affiliate, and to provide for other matters related thereto. As Mr. Marstall mentioned, Project Cobalt is a longtime employer in the county, having been operated here for over 2 decades. This amendment will provide Cobalt with more flexibility as to the required number of employees going forward, while changing the special source revenue credits, resulting in greater revenues for the county. The Economic Development Department recommends this amendment and requests your affirmative vote approving the required number of employees be changed from 63 to 40, while also authorizing a reduction in the amount of the special source revenue credit applicable from 58% to 40%. All other terms to remain unchanged, including the company commitment to invest $2.5 million during the investment period.
All right. Any questions, Ms. Carnes?
I can give a little bit more flavor. Is that this agreement, original agreement, still runs through 2027. And so this will be a reduction just for a couple of years. The employer was still supposed to increase their numbers. They didn't make it this year, so we didn't think that they would make it. Again, they acknowledged to increase a few more employees by the 2027 date. And so in conversations with the company, still making their investment, but just doing a reduction in their SSRC to reflect that they're not meeting their original employment numbers.
Any discussion? I think we're ready to vote. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
We have unanimous approval of first reading of ordinance 2023-1887.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Let's move down to our discussion and action items. We have some appointments to various boards and commissions. Somebody want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion for Ms. McGriff, second for Mr. Blackman. Any discussion? All in favor, we got to vote. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chairman and Council, I do want to point out that the second person, Danielle Calabro, is going to be appointed to the Health and Wellness Commission. I apologize for leaving that out. Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
We have unanimous approval for Dale Sullivan, Danielle Cabrero, and Adrian Robinson. We appreciate them, their service for these various boards. Mr. Marstall, anything else on?
Not in the agenda. We'll have 2 executive session items. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on down to executive session. Do I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss 2 items, receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter related to land acquisition?
So moved.
And the second one is receipt of legal advice subject to attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter regarding land acquisition.
So moved, aye.
Motion from Mr. Graham, second from Ms. McGriff. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlie McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
Approved.
We have unanimous approval to go into executive session. This council is now in executive session. I'd like to call this meeting back to order, Lancaster County Council. Do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved. So moved.
Motion from Mr. Blackman, second from Mr. Louise. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
We have unanimous approval to come out of executive session.
Mr. Chairman, council met in executive session for 2 items. The first being receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter relating to land acquisition, and another receipt of legal advice subject to the attorney-client privilege regarding a potential contractual matter relating to land acquisition. No motions were made and no votes were taken.
All right, thank you. Anything else before we close?
I move to authorize the administrator to enter into negotiations and execute all necessary documentation related to the purchase of property for the county fleet operations within the parameters discussed during executive session.
Second.
I have a motion for Louise, a second from Mr. Blackman. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approve.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
All right, we have a unanimous vote to authorize our administrator to pursue negotiations. At 7:35 p.m., could I have a motion?
So
to
moved.
adjourn? A motion from
Second.
Mr. Louise, a second from Mr. Graham. Roll call, please.
Terry Graham,
Approve.
Charlene McGriff,
Approved.
Billy Mosteller,
Approve.
Jose Luis,
Approved.
Steve Harper,
Approve.
Alan Blackman,
Approve.
Brian Carnes.
We have unanimous approval to adjourn at 7:35 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.
I did. I'm so glad.